On this video, I would like to read Genesis 1 in Hebrew, uh, looking at each day and looking at how the ancient Near East also is a background study that helps us to understand Genesis 1. I would also like to do a New Testament application as we are working through this text. So we begin. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim ve'et ha'aretz. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. What a difference between this and the ancient Near East, where we have two water, we could say fresh water and salt water, merging their waters and forming a theogony of gods. There's nothing like that in the beginning. No male or female merging waters. It's just in the beginning, Elohim, bara, created the heaven and the earth. What a beautiful, beautiful beginning. Very simple, uh, without all of the, can I say, details of something like an Enuma Elish, with all of your polytheism and theogony birthing of gods. So we move on. In verse 2, it reads, V'ha'aretz hayata tohu vavohu, v'choshek al panei tahom, v'ruach Elohim merachefet al panei hamayim. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Three statements. The earth was without form and empty. And in the first 3 days, he's going to show us how form was brought. And then he goes on day 4 to 6, showing us the emptiness and how it was taken care of. And darkness was upon the face of the deep. It was dark, sort of like almost like a storm imagery, but it was dark. And the face of the deep, Panei Tahom, basically is looking at like a world ocean where the world is covered with water. Tahom carrying the idea of almost like a universal ocean, as it were. And the Spirit of God, Merachefet, was hovering over the face of the waters. The interesting use of this participle is that the Spirit is like hovering as a way to translate it. Someone had translated soaring over the waters, but it seems to me a background to this in the book of Deuteronomy, where this root is used again, of a bird training the young how to fly and letting them loose and then going under them, hovering over them to get them out of the nest, so to speak, and learn to fly. So the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. What is striking here is that the earth was without any form, and darkness was upon the world ocean, so to speak, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And as I think about the, let's say, the Babylonian account, for example, the two waters merged and a theogony of gods were born. Where here we have God Himself and His Spirit hovering over the waters, over the Tahom, and He's going to bring life. He's going to bring, can we say, form in that. There's no battling of the gods here. And it is interesting in Enuma Elish, the Babylonian account, Marduk had to struggle with Tiamat, with the female deity, and he divided her in half. With half ever he made the heavens, and with half ever he made the earth. Here, God is in control. He is just hovering, is the way I'm translating this, rather than soaring, which is a possible translation, over the waters. And then notice the next verse. Vayomer Elohim yehi or vayehi or. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. It is wonderful to realize that God just speaks and light appears. God is the source of light. And as I look at the New Testament, we are told that Jesus said, I am the light of the world, that Jesus is the light. In John 1, alluding to this passage, in arche ein halagas, in the beginning was the Word, kai halagas ein prostanteon, and the Word was face to face with God, and the Word was God. And we're told that as we look at that, the text said, and God said, or it reads, and the light shines in the darkness. And it's interesting, Christ brought light to the world by shining in the darkness of this world. And the darkness could not overcome it or destroy it. All of those thoughts are in John 1. So Jesus, in New Testament application, alluding back to this text, is the light. And I think that's very striking. To me, John clearly had this in mind, where he was in the light. The life was in him, and the life was taphos ton anthropon, the light of men. And as we said, the light shines in darkness, but the darkness did not only katelevan, did not only not comprehend it, but did not overcome it. And that's very interesting to me, that Jesus has conquered death and Satan and the demons. And so the darkness could not overcome the light of Christ. And so as we continue on in this great text, notice it says, furthermore, and God saw the light, vayad Elohim et ha'or kitov, that it was good. Vayivdel Elohim bein ha'or uvein ha'choshek. And God divided, or literally caused a division between the light and between the darkness. It is interesting that God is the one causing the division between the light and the darkness by just speaking and causing that to happen. It's like He is the one calling out the commands. We see God as a king in this great chapter. And what a difference between this and the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian account of the fall, or excuse me, of creation, where Marduk had to fight with Tiamat and defeat her. And with half ever he made the heavens, with half ever he made the earth. But what is exciting here is that God is the one in control from the very get-go. And God called the light day, Vayikra Elohim la'or yom, v'lachoshek kara layla, Vayihi erev vayihi boker yom achad. So God called to the light, and He said, your name's going to be day. And notice how God is the king in control here. And to the darkness, He called night. God called the darkness night, Lila, and there was evening and there was morning, day one. So what we see in verse 1 is the absolute sovereignty of God in creation. No other, God wasn't with a wife or anything like that, as in Enuma Elish, where male and female waters merge. There was no creation of gods. He is just alone, and he speaks creation into being. And then in verse 2, in day 2, it reads, Vayomer Elohim yehi rakia b'toch hamayim v'hi mabdil bein mayim lamayim. Let there be rakia. Rakia is like an expanse. It's sort of like a hammered out disc that God is going to slide between the waters. So God said, let there be a rakia in the midst of the waters, very poetic in a sense here, and let there be a division between the waters above and the waters below. Vayehi mabdil bein mayim lamayim. Again, what a difference. Where Marduk had to struggle with Tiamat and then had to, from dividing her in half, so to speak, or cutting her in half, make the heavens and make the earth, and divide the waters, God just speaks and it's done. What a difference in the two accounts. Vaya'as Elohim et harakia vayavdil bein hamayim asher metachat larakia uvein hamayim asher me'al larakia vayehi chen. And God divided between the waters which were above up to the expanse, and between the waters which were below, between the waters which were above to the expanse, and it was so. So we're told that God made the expanse and divided between the waters which were literally from under. I should have translated that. Mitachat larakia, from under up to the expanse, and between the waters which were above up to the expanse. Vayikra Elohim larakia shamayim, and God called to the expanse, your name's going to be heaven. Vayehi erev vayehi boker yom sheni. And there was evening and there was morning, day 2. So God calls to the expanse and he says, your name will simply be heaven. Again, what a beautiful, beautiful passage that shows the greatness of God in creation, creating everything, not struggling as Marduk had to do with Tiamat, but just speaking everything into being. And with New Testament application, as we have said, what a beautiful text in John 1, where Christ, all things were made by him, and Jesus basically creates everything by the Word. He is the Word that causes that, and he is the light that brings life to humankind. So there's a great back and forth reference to the New Testament and application in John 1 to this great text.